But Rick started racing short track in the early mid 60s, 64, 65. In there, he was racing short track at El Toro, Trojan Speedway, the local short tracks around. And then he became ACA #1 at that time. I'm going to give you a little bit of history on kind of how Speedway got started back then in the modern era. So about 1966, Wes Cooley brought out a couple of JAPs for an exhibition at El Toro. And the exhibition was so cool that somebody got a hold of it and decided they were going to start Speedway again. Well, that guy that started Speedway was a guy named Dude Criswell. And Dude was the one that started Whiteman Stadium, where it was the rebirth of the modern era of Speedway. And that's where it really all started. And then it picked up from that point. It went to Trojan and El Toro, and the other tracks were picking it up on a nightly basis. And then Costa Mesa opened, and obviously the success of Costa Mesa everybody's aware of. Earlier in that, though, when Rick started, he was very good at short track and a really good Class C rider. He was the #1 novice in the nation in 1966 on a factory Suzuki. At that point, he obviously moved in the amateur ranks, and in '67, he rode a couple of amateur races and decided he didn't really like riding those 500s on the half mile. He's a little wobbly, a little scary for him. He didn't really like it, and that's about when all the whole Speedway thing started taking off. Right in there in late '67, early '68, and as you saw it, I think you were talking about. I couldn't hear you because it wasn't clear, but the riders that were riding Speedway back then in '67, '68 were sitting on the seat like a regular Class C bike, and I think you showed a picture of Rick on there. It was an old JAP, and it actually had a knee hook on it because they used to ride him sitting down. They didn't actually, that picture right there, they used to ride him like a conventional Class C bike. And then in '68, Ivan and Barry came over, and they had a school at Whiteman Stadium, and they literally, before the school, they come over and they raced, and they made everybody look bad. I mean, it was like watching Division I guys against Division III guys at that point. So there was a huge difference in ability and how to control the motorcycle. And Rick was kind of the first one that got the real good handle and the grasp on that. So Rick was the first guy to go fast on one. And that's where he won his first national championship in '68 at Whiteman Stadium. And that's kind of where it all started. But, you know.
Can you tell us about the team racing? Because here's a little clipping, and if you look over here, Rick Woods was on the Tigers with Jack O'Brien, Paul Chamberlain, and Rick Woods was #4 there. Do you remember anything about the team racing? Because that's pretty cool.
No, I think that was some early tests that they were doing to see if they wanted team racing because of the team racing in Europe. And it never really took off because of, kind of the same reason it didn't take off in the '70s. Was because they wanted to see all the top riders every night. And, in the team racing, you couldn't see that. So, but yeah, it was very, very cool times. And then Speedway, obviously, the history of Speedway, the history of Speedway, you were around it. And we watched it grow tremendously in the '60s through the '70s and into the mid '80s before it started any type of a decline. It was on a growth period for many, many years.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there's just the way that they rode the Speedway bike back then. Like you said, they sat down and they had the Class C style. And they just, actually, that's all they knew how to ride is a Class C. So they actually sat down and they pretty much had their butts on the seat like they did back when they rode the Class C bikes. They pretty much, that's all they knew how to ride, right, Gene?
Right.
And then
where do you find all these cool pictures, Brian?
I'm a collector of pictures. Okay, I go everywhere and find these pictures. And you like those pictures, huh, Gene?
Yeah, you find some good stuff.